In the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria, lived a man named George Adebayo. George was a rich businessman who owned a big furniture shop in the city. His shop was famous for selling beautiful chairs, tables, and beds. He started his business selling phones and chargers on the roadside of Alaba International Market. With hard work and consistency, he grew his business to what it was. George was married to Linda, a beautiful woman with bright eyes and a warm smile. Linda was a chef and event planner. She cooked for events, homes, and sometimes trained younger girls on how to make pastries and traditional soups. People said her food had magic because once you tasted it, you would always come back. That was how George met her. George and Linda seemed to have everything: money, a big house, nice cars, and respect from everyone who knew them. But something important was missing from their lives: children. For 8 long years after they got married, they had no children. They were both very busy with their work, so they poured all their energy into it. George worked harder to make his furniture business bigger, and Linda took more cooking jobs to grow her catering company. Then, like a miracle, in the 9th year of their marriage, Linda became pregnant. The joy was even greater when they discovered she was carrying not 1, not 2, but 3 babies. Linda couldn't stop smiling for days. After waiting for so long, God is giving us 3 at once, she kept saying as she rubbed her growing belly. When the time came, Linda gave birth to 3 beautiful baby girls. They named them Mary, Molly, and Maya. The triplets looked exactly alike with their mother's bright eyes and their father's round face. Linda looked at her new family with so much love in her heart. "And I promised to be the best mother," she added. The first few months with the triplets were very hard. Linda and George were happy but very tired. Taking care of 3 babies at the same time was not easy, especially because they were both still working. So they hired a nanny named Mama Joy, a kind older woman who had raised 5 children of her own. She helped take care of the triplets while Linda went back to her kitchen business and George managed his furniture shops. For a while, things seemed to be working well. But just as the triplets turned 3, George's business began to have problems. Some of his workers were stealing money, and a new furniture shop opened nearby that sold cheaper items. "I don't understand what's happening," George said one night, looking at the account books with worry in his eyes. "My money is disappearing so fast, and I cannot explain." Linda put her hand on his shoulder. "You'll figure it out. You are smart and hardworking. Just be patient." But George couldn't solve the problems. As his business got worse, he started to change. The once happy and confident man became sad and angry. And then he found a dangerous way to forget his troubles: alcohol. It started with just 1 bottle of beer after work, then it became 2, then 3. Soon, George was drinking many bottles every day. He would come home late, walking unsteadily, his words all mixed up. "Where have you been?" Linda asked when he stumbled through the door at midnight. "Mind your business," George said, pushing past her to fall onto their bed. When he wasn't drunk, George was easily annoyed. Small things would make him very angry. If the food was a little cold, he would throw the place against the wall. If one of the triplets cried too loudly, he would shout until the whole house shook. Linda was becoming more and more worried. The triplets were now scared of their father's loud voice and angry face. One evening, Linda was preparing for a big catering job the next day. Her old refrigerator was too small for all the food she needed to store. "George, I think I need a bigger fridge for my business. The one I have now is too small for all my orders." George, who was sober that night, nodded. "That's not a problem. Just get me the money. I'll get one for you tomorrow." Next morning, George took the money Linda had saved and left, saying he would buy the refrigerator and bring it home. Linda was so happy that she spent the whole day cooking, expecting to store everything in her new big fridge. But when night came, George returned home without any refrigerator. He was drunk again, swaying as he walked through the door with a silly smile on his face. "George, what about my refrigerator?" Linda asked, looking behind to see if someone was delivering it. George just kept smiling and said nothing. Linda walked out to check the trunk of his car. Yet there was nothing there. She came back into the house, her face hot with anger. The next morning, when he was sober, Linda confronted him again. "George, you've not told me what you did with my refrigerator." George looked ashamed. I borrowed some of it to meet some urgent needs." "George, what kind of urgent needs took $500,000 in a day?" Linda shouted, her hands shaking with anger. "There's a man I owe money. They threatened me and I had to give them something." George mumbled, not looking at her. "Look, George, I don't know what you're evolving into. "This is not what I saw when I said yes to marrying you," Linda said, her voice breaking. "You will put yourself together and face your responsibilities." She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Outside, she leaned against the wall and cried quietly, so the triplets wouldn't hear her. As the years passed, things got worse instead of better. George's business was failing badly now. He sold 2 of his shops and was barely keeping the last one open. Most days he didn't even go to the shop. He stayed at home, sometimes drinking from morning until night. The family survived mostly on Linda's earnings from her catering business. She worked harder than ever, taking every job she could get. Sometimes she would be away from home for days, cooking for big events in other cities. As the triplets grew older, a pattern developed in the household. Molly, who loved her mother's cooking, often went with Linda to catering jobs. She would help chop vegetables, wash plates, and serve guests. Meanwhile, Mary and Maya stayed at home with their father. At first, it seemed like a good arrangement. When George was drunk, he was playful and would chase the girls around the house, making them laugh. The girls were always happy when he was this way because when he wasn't drunk, he was usually nagging and angry. But as the triplets turned 10, something terrible began to happen. George's playfulness with Mary and Maya turned into something wrong and evil. He began to touch them in ways that fathers never touched their daughters. And because they knew nothing about such things, they obeyed and did whatever he asked them to do.
"This is a special game that only daddies and daughters play," George would whisper to them, "and remember, you must keep your mouth shut and tell no one about how we play with daddy, okay?"
Mary and Maya, innocent and trusting, believed him. They didn't understand that what was happening was very wrong. Molly sometimes felt left out. "Why does daddy buy gifts for Mary and Maya but not for me?" she asked her mother one day. Linda, busy with her cooking, shrugged. "Don't worry about that. Maybe because you spend more time with me. I'll get you something later, okay?" As the girls grew older, George's abuse of Mary and Maya became worse. Sometimes he would beat them and force them to have sex with him, even when they were tired and in pain. One day, Linda noticed bruises on Mary's arms. "Mary, come here, what happened to you?" she asked with concern. Mary looked at the floor. I fell down the stairs," she lied, remembering her father's warnings to never tell anyone. "Then you need to be more careful," Linda said. She was too busy, too tired, and too focused on keeping the family fed to notice the signs of abuse happening right under her roof. By the time the triplets were 16, they had grown into beautiful young women, but they were very different from each other. Molly was cheerful and hardworking, always helping her mother and doing well in school. Mary and Maya were quiet and seemed withdrawn, with sad eyes that had seen too much pain for their young age. The once handsome and jolly George had become a shadow of himself. His face was puffy from drinking, his clothes were often dirty, and he had lost the respect of everyone who knew him. Linda was too busy to notice the changes in her husband or daughters. She was working harder than ever, and she had also started seeing another man secretly. One day, Linda and Molly were standing by the roadside waiting for a taxi after shopping at the market. A sleek car pulled over, and the window rolled down to reveal Mr. Towel's smiling face.
"Linda, what a pleasant surprise," he said. "Let me give you a ride home."
"Who is that man, Mommy?" Molly asked after they were dropped off at home. Linda smiled mysteriously. Just an old friend," she lied, not ready to tell her daughters about her new relationship. Meanwhile, something positive was happening in Molly's life. A boy in her school named Chijoke had been talking to her about Jesus Christ. At the end of these conversations, he would always ask, "Do you want to be born again?" Molly was curious about this Jesus who loved people so much. One afternoon, while she and her mother were making pastries for a client's birthday party, she decided to ask about it. "Mommy, are you born again?" Molly asked, sprinkling sugar on a batch of puff-puff. Linda's hands paused briefly. "Oh no, don't tell me they've met you," she said with a frown. "You know what, just ignore those people. They talk too much stories. Pass me the sugar, please." Molly couldn't ignore it. She secretly began following Chijoke to a Christian fellowship at their school. She loved the singing, the prayers, and the feeling of peace she got there. "Mary, Maya, why don't you come with me to fellowship?" Molly invited her sisters one day. "It's really nice." Mary and Maya exchanged looks and shook their heads. "No thanks," they said. "Be praying for all of us. And for Daddy, I think he needs it more," they added as they both laughed together. As weeks passed, Linda began to notice changes in her daughters, especially Mary and Maya. They seemed tired all the time and were missing school.
One evening, she called all three girls to the living room. "Is everything alright with you girls?" she asked, looking at each of them carefully. "Yes, Mom," they all answered. "There's something odd about you girls, especially Mary and Maya," Linda pressed. "I heard you both slept throughout yesterday and did not go to school. Are you sick?" "No, Mom," Mary and Maya chorused, avoiding their mother's eyes. Linda narrowed her eyes suspiciously. You girls are too young to have boyfriends. I would have taken you for pregnancy tests because I don't understand. Besides, have you seen your periods this month?" The twins looked at each other nervously. "Yes, ma," they said in unison. Linda was about to ask another question when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and smiled when she saw Mr. Tao's name. "I have to take this. Please excuse me," she said, walking away quickly. As the weeks turned into months, something became increasingly obvious. Mary and Maya's stomachs were growing bigger. They tried to hide it with loose clothes, but soon it was impossible to hide anymore. One evening, Linda confronted them directly. "You have decided to bring me shame. Ha!" Linda shouted, pacing back and forth. "How can you be pregnant at 16? What's wrong with you girls? Yet you don't even know who got you pregnant. Are you prostitutes?" Just then, George came stumbling into the room, clearly drunk. "My beautiful daughters," he said, spreading his arms wide. "Come and give Daddy a hug." Before anyone could respond, he slumped into a chair and passed out, snoring loudly. Linda looked around the room frantically. "Where's Molly?" she asked, suddenly worried about her third daughter. When Mary and Maya whispered that Molly was at a friend's house, the front door opened and Molly walked in, singing a new song she had learned at the fellowship that day. Linda breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that at least one of her daughters was okay. Then she turned back to Mary and Maya. "You girls should tell me who did this to you now." Mary and Maya looked at each other, years of fear and secret pain in their eyes. Finally, Maya couldn't hold it in anymore. "It's Daddy, Mommy, it's Daddy," she shouted, bursting into tears. Mary also began to cry. "It's true, Mommy, it's Daddy. He told us not to tell anyone." Linda froze in shock. What? What did you just say?" she whispered, though deep down she already understood. Between sobs, Mary and Maya told their mother everything, how their father had been abusing them since they were 10 years old, how he threatened them to keep quiet, how they were too scared to tell anyone. Linda listened in horror, her whole body shaking. She couldn't believe that her husband had been molesting their daughters for 5 years, and she had never noticed. It dawned on her that she had been living with a beast and never knew it. Molly stood in the corner, tears streaming down her face, as she finally understood why her sisters had been so different, why they always seemed sad. She realized that what she had once thought was her father's dislike for her was actually God protecting her from the terrible things he had done to her sisters. Linda wiped her tears and stood up. "Get up, all of you. Right now," she said firmly. "We are leaving this house." While George was still passed out drunk in the chair, Linda and her daughters quickly packed their clothes and important belongings. They loaded everything into Linda's car and drove away from the house. Days later, Linda finally answered George's calls. "I just picked this call to let you know that if you call me again, I'll report you to the police," she warned. "You're a foolish woman. Who cares about you and those useless daughters of yours? Why did you take my properties along with them?" "Ah, George, how you've fallen. Anyway, I took everything I bought with my money. I have nothing that's yours. Call me again and I'll have you arrested." She hung up and blocked his number immediately. In their new home, Mary and Maya finally gave in to Molly's gentle persuasion and followed her to a church near their new residence. The pastor's wife, Mrs. Okonkwo, was a trained therapist and midwife. After hearing their story, she promised to help the girls with their pregnancy and delivery. "God hasn't forgotten you. What happened to you was terrible, but God can turn even the worst situations into something good. Be encouraged, my daughters." Every day, Mary and Maya went to Mrs. Okonkwo's clinic for free therapy sessions as they approached their delivery date. Slowly, they began to heal from their trauma. Linda still refused to go to church herself. "I don't want anything to do with those church people," she would say whenever Molly invited her, but she allowed her daughters to go because she could see how much it was helping them heal. With Mrs. Okonkwo's help, Mary and Maya safely delivered their babies, a boy for Mary and a girl for Maya. Linda hired a nanny to help take care of the babies while the three sisters returned to school to continue their education. One evening, Molly found her sisters sitting on the balcony with their babies. She joined them and held their hands. "Let us pray." They all chorused amen after the prayers. They hugged each other as tears of joy ran down their cheeks.